Good evening, everybody. Welcome. You are listening to the Phantom Network and Beyond the Medium.
All right. So today we're going to start off our show talking about miracles. I get calls and emails every day with people telling me that they've had something special happen in their lives. And actually, coming over to the studio, I was talking to our guest, Robert Veach, who's well, I would rate him to be one of the quirky geniuses of the paranormal. Robert is a scientist and an electronics expert who has made it his avocation right now to develop new methods so that we can communicate with beings on the other side.
And in just a couple of minutes, folks, we're going to take a quick break. Robert Veach is going to be joining us here in the studio. You've heard him chime in a little bit here as we've been going along. But Robert Veach, Robert, you do paranormal studies through electronics. Am I correct?
That's correct. I do paranormal research, and I try and use advanced electronics to analyze any data I get.
All right, fantastic, folks. It's going to be really fascinating. You're going to love it.
I was just going to ask you to introduce Robert. We've been playing around with Robert for a while, but Robert actually has a bio.
Well, he does. Robert Veach. Take it away.
Hello.
Okay, you want me to do it? Okay,
yeah.
No problem.
Because you have such a good voice.
Robert Veach has over 25 years. He has over 25 years experience as an electrical and mechanical engineer and has a passion for ghost hunting, animatronics, and video production. His Jefferson Graveyard Show has been covered on NBC, CBS, ABC, and WGN News, as well as various Chicago newspapers.
All right. So I want to also say that I find Robert to be incredibly fascinating. I work with a lot of Ghostbusters and a lot of paranormal people out there doing really great research. But having a more scientific background myself, I love their enthusiasm, but I also love the gadgets.
Yes, I love gadgets too. I've got gadgets right in front of me here. I don't even leave home without them.
Okay, so we have flashy movie gadgets. So could you explain some of these gadgets you have here in the studio and what was happening with the flashing lights?
Oh, I was just nervously pushing a button on one of my ghost boxes.
Oh, darn. I thought that I had a spirit attached to me or something.
There's no orb or anything. It's just white light. So, no, I usually bring something along just so I could look at it as I'm describing it.
Okay, so here you are. You're an electrical engineer. You've helped design cell phone technology. Was that it, or voice
switching
technology?
Systems for AT&T Bell Labs back in the 80s and 90s.
You were one of the pioneers in electronics, correct?
Yes.
And Robert was telling me in the car that he was had been doing this since he was 7.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I've always tinkered with electronics, and actually had a working electronics lab probably when I was 12 years old.
So he doesn't just went out to Walgreens and bought some equipment. All of his equipment is modified, and not only that, he understands it to a level that finally popped in my brain about what all these paranormal people were doing. So how did you get interested in ghosts?
Well, I've always been interested in paranormal things, and there's been so much popularity in the different shows, so I started watching some of the ghost shows out there, and I started getting a little frustrated with them using the equipment and some of the terms they're using. So I was, trying to add some validity to the science part of it, and so I started investing in some of the equipment myself and seeing some of the limitations, and then modifying some of the equipment and going from there.
Okay, so tell us. Well, first of all, have you ever gotten anything great with this equipment?
Well, I've developed a couple different things that are kind of new, so I haven't used a lot of the things for more than about 8 months. So I'm new at some of this equipment that I've developed. So,
by the way, I hate to interrupt there. Is that your thing there that's making the home sound?
There is something here, but
is it turned on?
No, nothing's turned on at this point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, nothing's turned on. I'll just unplug it right here just in case. Yeah, this isn't turned on.
We have a miracle hum in the studio that's driving me crazy.
Yeah, we got something going on.
Yeah.
And that's so funny because I totally don't hear it.
Okay, well, we're being visited.
Yeah, must be, because I can hear it.
It's that chip I've got.
Okay, there you go. It's your pacemaker. Okay,
That's
anyway, go ahead, Jim. Sorry about that.
Jim.
Robert.
Whoa, Dave's been possessed.
I was looking around the room, thought it might be a ghost or something. That's somebody else here. But no, I don't have anything turned on. I do have things in front of me that are just not turned on at this point. But so I've always been into electronics and modifications of things like that. But I, got interested in paranormal things and saw programs that, piqued my interest. And then I started modifying my own devices that I purchased. And that's where I'm at right now, and researching new ways to communicate with the unknown. I'm a skeptic at heart. And I like to really prove everything. And if I can get something on video that I can analyze or something audio, I will then present it professionally to people so that, there's some credibility to this field, I think, in terms of paranormal.
So I hear you saying that you'd like to hear from anyone in our audience who might have an actual haunting going on so you can scientifically analyze it. So please, if you're haunted, if your house is haunted, if your brother is haunted, if your ex is haunted, give us a call. And Robert might just choose you to come out and do some experimentation and see if we can actually hear from the beyond. Last week I told a story about Benjamin Franklin. One of the things about being a medium is I'm not just beleaguered by ghosts of Jimmy and Billy Sue. I can actually, and love when I talk to what we call elevated spirits. Maybe in Ben's case, not necessarily that elevated, but at least interesting. Interesting spirits. And so Ben Franklin is one of the few spirits that I can talk to that I can actually catch a glimpse of. I'm not always a seeing medium. As a matter of fact, I don't really... I prefer not to see because it disconcerts me.
Right.
But the first time I saw Ben Franklin, there he was, just like you see him on our money, very clearly, stark naked. And I was like, Ben Franklin, you're stark naked and you're in my living room. What are you doing? So Robert is such a wonderful researcher. He heard me tell the story. And indeed, Ben Franklin was a person who decided that every morning he would bathe naked in fresh air. He felt that it was important to his health. I had no idea about this. And he wrote, I rise early every morning and sit in my chamber without any clothes whatsoever, half an hour or an hour, according to the season, either reading or writing.
Right. It's fascinating.
So I guess he just wanted to be cozy with me and be stark naked.
I've done that before.
Really? Sit stark naked, reading and writing?
Well, not reading and writing, but plenty of Grey Goose. I mean,
so, in any case, one of the things that I found fascinating about Robert's work is not just catching the random EVP, although right now we're really excited to get a random EVP.
Right,
Or
right.
that's what is an EVP?
Electronic voice phenomenon.
Okay. Now, why would we need to use electronic devices to hear spirits? The fact of the matter is that spirits don't have voice boxes. They don't really have specific language, for that matter. They communicate through electrical phenomena. Just like you might communicate to your children by giving them the look.
Right.
The look isn't something your kids actually have to see.
Right.
They can actually feel that energy pulsing from your body, and they'll stop dead in their tracks. That's why your mother could give you the look, and it could go around the corner, and you'd know you were getting the look from your mom, even though you didn't have eyes on her.
Right.
It's because we're basically energy. Even communication is 97% non-vocal. So these spirits there on the other side, although you can hear Grandma quite clearly talk to you after she's passed, that's a phenomena that's called, you're receiving things telepathically from Grandma. And when Grandma first goes, she can send a very clear message because she's still more material than non-material. And so you can feel her presence. That feeling then can be interpreted as words. Mm-hmm. And so you can say, what would you say? Grandma came and I felt a kaleidoscopic energy that swirled around me and I felt good. You don't say that. You say, Grandma came and said she loved me. That's how you'd actually talk about it. However, with Robert, if Grandma has been on the other side for a while, she can learn to communicate, just like a child can learn to communicate who's deaf.
Right.
So we are a hearing, sound-filled world, but the deaf have an amazing language. So if any of you out there use the sign language to speak or deaf communication, you'll know that the deaf language is actually much richer, much better, much more expressive than spoken word.
Right.
And so the same thing happens with the spirits. So after a spirit's been on the other side for a while, they learn to manipulate the energy, and they learn to manipulate different kinds of electronic frequencies that we have here, and to have those electronic frequencies actually make sense to us in some way. It's vice versa, too. I had actually never thought about it so much, but when I talk to spirits, I do so more telepathically than I do with my voice. Even though I might be saying something like, who are you? Or why are you here? Or can you roll this ball? I'm also asking that question in my mind with a streaming picture.
Right.
And so when Robert does this, what he's trying to do is he's trying to quantify that streaming picture that's coming from the spirits, so we'll actually be able to, in real time, get some kind of response, which is very exciting.
Right.
And it's more exciting to me than just proving that life exists on the other side, because, my God, what if we could actually communicate with the likes of Einstein? What if we could talk to Oppenheimer? What if we could talk to the guy down the block who has the money buried in his basement?
Right.
What if we could get some real-time information from spirits on the other side? It would revolutionize things. So tell us a little bit about how that works so that we here can understand.
Well, there's a lot of research on how entities might communicate to things like EVP recorders. And there's a lot of research done in the 50s where they were getting voices on studio equipment that they couldn't explain. And there were some tests done where they even removed microphones from studios and still got EVPs coming in. So no one really knows what they really are, but we do know that if you take a digital recorder or even an analog recorder and you record and you ask certain questions, you sometimes get a response to those questions. And I myself have had this happen several times. I had it happen at the Angel Center in Oswego, where Amy's office was. And it's really unique because you hear a real faint sound, and you look on a computer and you analyze it, and you see that sound is kind of bypassing the microphones. It's not even used. It's not stereo. It's not surround sound. And it's usually something in response to a question. And it's fascinating because you know that you didn't hear that. A lot of times you don't hear it when you're there. So it's not like the sound is audible or it's not using acoustics of any kind. So it's coming in. You're usually not hearing it. Some people do hear them. And then you analyze the data later and you get this intelligent response. So a lot of people have used old tape recorders. Some people have used high-end digital recorders. Anything seems to capture this if you have the right if you're in the right environment, you know what you're doing, you ask the right questions, and then you capture something unique. Then you analyze it.
Okay, well, Dave and I were at a paranormal conference, and one of the things they used were what they call the ghost boxes. Is that what it's called?
Ghost box, yeah.
And they were scanning the frequency of radio stations, and you could hear the babble of the people
channels,
on the radio stations. And the people who were manning these devices would actually yell out, I heard such and such.
Right.
But you're telling me that actually either they're very special because they have such a sensitive ear, or probably it was wishful thinking, and that we actually analyze these things on a computer.
Yes, and I think there's a term called pareidolia, which I was looking up today, and that's where people kind of think they see something. They see a random image or a random sound, and they hear something out of that. So some people think ghost boxes are that. I don't think that. I think that if you set up a ghost box properly so that it's working properly and you get a response and you really analyze it, you could really show that it's something valid, which I've done in some of my videos in the Angel Center.
Yeah, and unfortunately at that thing that we were at that paranormal conference, I mean, they had two of them going at the same time. We were at this huge, big square table. And what would you say, Amy, about 40 people?
Oh, yeah, even more maybe.
About 40 people sitting around this table, darkened room, and this person, who we don't really need to bring up his name, but he was fairly renowned in the field. And what happened is they turned both of these things on at the same time, and it just sounds like somebody going up and down the dial of a radio.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah. Oh, I heard that. I heard, the demon said he's going to come and get you, or something like that. It'd be ridiculous. And we're like, huh? What? I'm not hearing anything.
Right.
But this guy had a lot of his followers around to give him absolution, I suppose.
Right.
And it was just basically all they did. It was smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Because they put up a big sense of chaos, a big
Right.
big distraction, and it was noisy and loud, and I'm glad I didn't pay money for it.
Right.
Honestly.
Well, now, back off, both of you. The people who do this, I think, do it with a good heart.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to do something real time in front of a bunch of people
Yeah.
when they have an expectation. That sets up a mental trick, so to speak, where the person who's performing, quote unquote, wants to play to the audience.
Right.
And the more you play to the audience, then it takes on a life of its own. So I think these researchers were good researchers. I think they were just in a bad situation in doing this kind of seance. And 99% of all seances take that track,
Right.
where they get really out of control and everybody gets really hysterical. And oddly, it's kind of entertaining in its
Right.
own way. We all get to talk about it and make comments and et cetera. So it is entertaining. And for those people, there was actually a gentleman there who did get scratched by something which they thought was demonic energy. And can demons or spirits scratch you? Yeah, they have enough physical ability to do something like
Right.
that. They can do that. But is it likely that it actually happened? I don't know. It would have to have more rigorous science
Right.
behind
Right.
it.
Having a ghost box going, even just one going, and having a channel scan going on, it's almost impossible for most people to hear a voice clearly. And then having two, it makes it impossible. And when you have more than one, it's called audio matrixing in the field, and that's when you have more than one, typically three even. But to analyze that real time is kind of meaningless. And that's something that I see on these shows that's kind of funny. And when you analyze it on a computer, you could really look at the channels and make sure that you're not hearing FM stations. So
Well, Dave was telling a story, if you would care to tell it, Dave, about radio Ouija.
Oh, well, yeah, we would, and it was nothing. This is kind of comparison to this. When we were kids, you'd ask the spirits a question and stuff, and then you'd just basically twist the dial until you got the answer,
Right.
I guess, you were wanting.
right.
You
Well, and
know.
it's the same like, do you push the Ouija board? That's
Well,
a
right.
very interesting thing,
Right.
because you
People-
have an ideomotor response
Right.
that's going to cause you to push the Ouija planchette.
But anyway, what you've got going on, Robert, is it's more scientific. It's very, so what you're talking about real time is you go through the paces through this, and then you're not going to know the results for quite a while
Right.
until you've analyzed them.
Exactly. Unless it's really blatantly obvious.
Well, how do you do? Have you had any obvious ones?
Yes, we've had a couple, and like I point out at I was going to say the Amy Center, at the Angel,
That's
the,
okay.
the Amy Center, the Angel Center. There was, I was in the basement there, and I was getting no FM stations whatsoever, which is a ghost box dream. Because
And by the way, a little back history. That basement, the basement is I'm thinking, I want to say 1840
yeah,
is when that building was originally
And
built.
it's solid, it's dug into the rock.
yes, it's very deep, and it's real
Right.
thick stones, and so I wasn't getting any radio stations at all, and so I was happy that I wasn't. So I did get a direct response to a question asking if there's any entities in this basement, and I got the word hello. And on my video, I really analyze and show that cannot be a radio station, because the odds of getting those 4 syllables together at one time is like 1 in a million. It's insane. So that was a direct response. Most of the responses you're not going to be able to hear directly. You have to analyze it with Adobe Audition, something like that, an audio program. And then you can look at the bits coming in and make sure that you're getting valid information.
And most Ghostbusters that I know, that it's arduous to do the analysis.
Yes.
Hours
Yes,
and hours
yes.
of listening to nothing.
Right. Just listening to the video I did for you recently of your what's it called again?
Mediumship
The
or
mediumship,
channel,
right?
yes.
That was probably 8 hours looking at videos, making sure I didn't hear any EVPs or anything. So it's a lot of time consuming with headphones on. And then if I hear something unusual, I usually analyze it with the software to make sure it's valid.
All right. Well, hey, Robert, if I wanted to get up and see some of your work, where would I go?
Well, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is VParanormal1. You could also go to VParanormal1.com, and you can see more information about what I do there.
All right, or you can go to YouTube and just look up Robert Veach.
Right, you'll get a bunch of robotic ghouls if you do that, which is okay, because I have got that separate business hobby my wife calls it, where I've got these robots that come to life every Halloween. So you can see that there too.
All right.
But anyway, what I was going to ask is, we've talked about the voice boxes and stuff like that. There.
So we're here with Robert Veach,
yes,
in case
we're
you're
back
just
with
tuning
Robert
in.
Veach. And Robert Veach, of course, does paranormal investigating through electronic devices, you might say, through frequency. And so voice box, everybody's using them. Tell us about them.
Well, let me give out two plugs here. The guy who invented it, his name was Frank Sumption in 2002. And he actually invented it because he wanted to communicate to extraterrestrials. Most people don't know that. It's kind of fascinating. And then it was out in the field. He had like 39 prototypes, and people started getting sounds in them of voices. And that's how it all started. So his early one was an old FM radio that he modified. And what we have today is very similar, but now we have a digital version of it. And the gentleman that designed a really good unit, I think, is Gary Gelka from ITC Research. And that's the one I use. And I think the thing that separates this one from the early ones is that it's a digital scanning right now. So you have a choice of how fast you can change the FM channels or the AM channels.
Okay.
And the early ones, you didn't have a choice. The early ones would really change the channel based on something called white noise. And
So like when you turn the radio in your car.
right, you tune the radio in your car. It's very similar, and it's digital. You notice it doesn't go to approximately 102.5. It goes to 102.5.
Zoom.
Right. So the new ghost boxes today, they are digital, and you have a choice of how much time you spend on every one of those FM channels.
Okay.
Didn't you have a question there?
I did have a question. Yes.
Okay.
We had a medium. It was about a month ago, and she brought in an investigator.
Right.
She had a voice box, and she went outside to one of our other rooms, and she was using it. All right? And she said that she could speak to the devil, and that this person was really angry. And I asked her about this this. He was a medium. He's like a feeler. And I asked her. I gave him the name. Gave her the name, and she came back that he's the devil. You know, and all this negative stuff, and I just don't buy into it. I mean, it's basically a box that you scan frequencies. Okay,
Right.
how are you able to pick up any type of paranormal activity or anybody from the beyond? How's the frequency able to pick up anything like that?
Well, that's a good question, and that's one of the questions that I had when I looked at these ghost boxes or Frank boxes. And a regular FM radio is just that. It picks up FM transmissions. It picks up music and voice. If we weren't on the internet, we would be transmitting on some FM channel, let's say. So most FM transmitters stay on one frequency, and you pick the frequency. The ghost box works by going from one frequency to another quite rapidly. And the theory is that an entity, if it can harness enough energy, it could produce a wave of energy that could be decoded by the decoder portion of the radio. Now, most people don't understand how a radio works, but I understand how a radio works quite well. And if you look at the internals of a radio, you can understand that you can modulate a radio quite easily. You can modulate it with energy. And most people don't realize that entities can manipulate charge, and they can create magnetic fields even when they move that charge. So it's not a really big step forward to think that an entity can manipulate something like this. And there's a learning process, too, that goes on with this. Entities can learn how to manipulate possible information that could go into a ghost box.
Okay. We were talking about, now imagine you're on the other side. Suddenly, you've become 100% energy. You don't have very much mass at all, and yet you have a burning desire to communicate backwards. It's as if you're suddenly in exile, right? So you learn after a while to begin to communicate. I once watched a prison movie where the prisoners began tapping out codes on the bars in order to communicate with each other. I also read a very interesting story where they had a number of deaf children from different countries, and they brought them together at a school. Something happened at the school, and for 2 weeks they were fed and taken care of, but there was no teaching, no learning happening. And within those 2 weeks, those children from multiple countries developed a language.
Right.
And the language was very rich and very authentic and covered all the needs of those children.
Wow.
Okay, so they did it by just moving their hands and jumping up and down and facial expressions. And it's actually an international deaf language that they use now that was developed by these children. It's the same with the spirits. They want to develop a language, and since their energy, and now hear me about energy, it doesn't mean doing jumping jacks. It means that they're actually electrical frequencies. That's what energy means. So there's a lot of people out there now, the heart math people out in California, that are doing a lot of research in manipulation of energy. Okay, so these spirits manipulate the frequencies of this radio, and we scan because we want to catch them across frequencies, because they won't necessarily be on one frequency, correct? So when you've gotten good EVPs, all right, they don't come. The whole word doesn't come on one frequency.
That's correct. And we don't want it to come on one frequency, but typically it comes on multiple frequencies. And if you can be in an environment that there is no FM channels coming in, it's even better. Let's say somebody in Chicago is using a ghost box. They're going to have a really hard time as opposed to somebody in Yorkville or Sandwich or somewhere further west, because there's less stations, less noise. But you're right. When it comes in bits and pieces. And if you really have the scanning of the frequencies set to really fast, which is typically 1/10 of a second, and you get a response over multiple channels and you analyze it that way, it's pretty valid at that point. You know, we're not talking about having a ghost box going every half a second. You know, I can simulate that right here with what's in my hand, and we can all hear an FM station for a half a second and say whatever we want about it. I'm not interested in doing that. I'm interested in breaking it up into 1/10 of a second increments and looking on a computer and looking at the summation of the words, because that's what impresses me, not really slow half a second scans of an FM radio station, because it's very easy for anybody to pick up half-second words and syllables that can be put together. It can mean anything, but it's very difficult to do that for 1/10 of a second.
Okay. So, John, you had another question about ghost boxes, and I'll answer your medium question in a minute.
I want to know if anybody's been able to pick up Elvis.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, no, you know, yeah, there you go. Well, you know what? Actually, the person who had the box let me listen to it, and I couldn't tell anything. She could say that they were completing sentences. It just sounded like gibberish, like, you know. It just sounded like gibberish. So
that's what happened at that conference.
Yeah, and I bet you anybody, if I was there and I looked at the settings, it was probably at half a second, which is meaningless. So I don't care if Elvis Presley comes through and says "Hello, Robert." Doesn't matter to me. It has to be really a fast channel change, and you really have to analyze it on a computer to see what the syllables are. Real time is not worth it.
Now, when something comes through, are they able to? You can tell like the voice, or is it choppy?
Well, you know, as the way energies work, from what I understand, what I've experienced, and Amy knows about this, is that I don't think they come through that clearly. And part of the reason is that it's a wave of energy. And, you know, most people know that if you take a balloon or a piece of plastic and you rub it together, you're going to get what's called an electrostatic charge, an E field. I've got an E field detector right here in my hand. Now, that charge can do nothing to my radio. But if I take that same charge and I move it 10 feet or 5 feet in the room, I'm going to create a current in the air. That current will trip a radio, AM and FM, especially AM. They can learn to manipulate that charge over time. And I've got a sheet in front of me with equations that I won't go into, which are insane because they talk about magnetic fields and how to calculate the current and voltage. But the reality is that we don't know what these entities could do, and we know that they can make charge. And it's not that hard to make charge. You pull two pieces of plastic away that makes charge. You move that charge in a room, and you get an electromagnetic pulse. That pulse can trigger this device and make syllables. So that's what the entities are doing. If it's a valid thing, they're manipulating that charge to get a current into this device.
Okay, so speaking of your medium, if she believed that this box was actually giving her special transmissions or talking to her, that might just be her way of understanding telepathic communication.
Right.
And that's one of the things that you have to understand. Mediums, when they say the word "I hear," very rarely are actually hearing. They're getting bursts of telepathic communication, which are actually just energy. The other day, I was walking past somebody and made a comment right here in the radio station about that, something that was going on with that person. And she asked me, "How do you know?
Right.
How did you know that?" Well, the fact is that I just did. I know that sounds really funny, but it's because you get a feeling in the middle of your tummy, and you just know that it's the truth. There's just no doubt about it. And that's actually a telepathic thing that's happening. You're receiving telepathic communication.
Right.
When I was down in Brazil working with John of God for such a very long time, I spent a lot of time in meditation, somewhere between 6 and 10 hours a day, 3 days a week, for months and months and months. And during that time, I decided to play with telepathy. And telepathy is a burst of energy. It's not hello, John. It's a burst of energy showing myself, talking to him, embracing him, looking at him, the feelings that come with saying hello, the good day that's going to happen because of the hello, etc. It's complicated.
Right.
So one little thing like hello, if you're using telepathy and not worrying about forming the words, but giving the feeling of hello, it's very, very complex, but also very powerful, because I could beam it across the room and the person would look up at me and look right at me, because it got to be that good after a while, except it takes practice. So wax on, wax off is what happens.
Yeah.
Now, it's the same thing with the spirits. When a spirit is newly deceased, although they can come to you in dreams and it feels very much like grandma is there, or your beloved husband, or your daughter or son, the fact of the matter is they're impacting your sleeping state,
Right.
or that kind of alpha state that you're in, and they're creating a picture in your mind about themselves. Even when you hear them, you don't actually hear with your ear. You hear with the vibration of the bone in back of your ear. We've actually analyzed that. So the spirit, in order to actually come through, needs time to be able to manipulate or learn how to manipulate these energies and communicate, just like the deaf kids needed 2 weeks to create a language for themselves. So I'm fascinated, really, really fascinated by Robert's work, because he has, there is no doubt, like, how did he get a very clear word in the basement with no FM signals that was actually recorded, and there was nobody else there, no even way any sound, because this was a pit.
Right.
There was no way anything could get through. That made me excited, because it gives me yet another way to communicate with my brothers and sisters on the other side. And just imagine, if you get over being scared and having demons attacking you, the possibilities of who you could talk to, what you could communicate, are just limitless. It's very exciting work.
And realize also that, I've gotten EVPs that are on my digital recorder. And my brother's a skeptic, Steve Veach, and he always says to me, well, that's just abnormalities, that's noise going in. I took my voice recorder that I used at the Angel Center, and I recorded about 15 hours in my house walking around. I didn't get one EVP, nothing. Just things turning on and off, me talking. So to get something in a 2-hour session in a basement in a response to a question is really unique. And we're not talking about something that's stereo. We're talking about something that is right in the center channel, and it's a little distorted, and it's really weird sounding, but you can kind of hear the syllables in it. And that's what an EVP is. It's pertinent to the question, and it wasn't there, you didn't hear it in your ears acoustically, but it's showing up in your data when you're analyzing it.
What was the question?
I was actually right by an area that was boarded up that might be possibly for slaves to go in between to hide. And I was saying, if we didn't get anything at this point, we didn't hear anything, and I wasn't getting any responses on my electromagnetic equipment or my electrostatic detector. So I said, we're going to leave now, but if you would like to go into the light, or if you'd like to go on or stay here, please do that. But we're going to be leaving now. And as I said that, then it said, it's time to fly. It was almost like they were saying, it's time for us to go. It's time to fly. And my son actually was listening, and he picked that up. He goes, did you hear that? And I'm like, I heard something. And it's a faint sound. And then when you amplify it and clean it up, you really hear that it's something right in there that wasn't there acoustically because my wife didn't hear it either. So it's just unique when you get something like that, something that really proves that EVPs are valid.
What did they say?
I think they were saying it's time for us to fly or time for us to go.
Wow.
Very
cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Do you have that available anywhere?
Yes, it's on the website. It's on my YouTube channel, VParanormal1. Or on VParanormal1.com. You can go and it has all the links there.
Oh, man, that stuff is so cool. So what is, Amy was mentioning earlier about, when you get over being scared have you ever been in a situation where you honestly got frightened?
Well, not really. Probably the scariest thing about going in basements is the big spiders. I don't like cobwebs. But no, I'm not really scared by anything too easily, because the way I look at it is that if they have to work for years to develop energy to be picked up by an FM radio, they really can't do much to me at this point. And I'm trying to validate things for them too, so I'm their friend.
I mean, you never got the creeps or anything out of it?
No, just when a spider crawls on me, that's what bothers me.
Okay, so I want to hear what is the absolute best absolute thing. Thank you God that I got into this moment. Well,
I'm new at a lot of this because I've developed my own equipment. So as I keep going forward, I'm going to be trying to prove more and more. But I would say the Angel Center was very unique because I went there with a real open mind and with some new equipment, and I got EVPs and I got ghost box responses. And there's a whole series of them that came through. And if you really know me as a person, I'm a very skeptical person at heart. And so for me to get something like that, and I disprove whatever I can. So I don't just get something and say right away it's an EVP. I use a very rigorous standard that I've developed for analyzing EVPs, and I use software to do that. I only let the good ones through that are real. So if you look at the video, you'll see those that are very compelling.
And when you get that sound, when you hear it, do you get little goosebumps? Are you excited? Because frankly, you were mentioning before about aliens. There is nothing that says that a being from another planet has to look anything like us or look like a giant insect or a grasshopper or a rat or whatever. Right. We depict them that way because we have to have them look like chicken. They have to be something that we understand in some way, right? But alien communication can come from beings that are 99.9% energy. They don't have to have the same kind of material aspect as we do. And that's one of the things when they talk about the other. I think in our last show we were talking about beings that were the other, or the grays, or the this or the that. We call them, in my world, we call them multidimensional beings. And so skeptics say, well, that means they don't exist. But the fact of the matter is that they do exist, that they're there, but we're to them as dust mites are to us. That we just don't, our worlds don't cross.
Where do they exist?
They exist here in this room. Every once in a while, out of the corner of your eyes, like for instance, in the corner there was a shadow that passed by. You catch it actually out of the corner of your eyes because the corner of your eyes have receptors that were designed to catch little movements that the front part of your eyes can't, so that you would be safe. So you're walking through the jungle, you catch that little cat stalking you just out of the corner of your eye. So if you would bother, there's an exercise you can do. What you do is you just stand straight, and then you look up as high as you can look, and then you look around and to the side and then down. So you're moving your eyes in a circular pattern. At first it'll actually hurt, because you're breaking those adhesions that happen when we only look straight ahead. We live in little boxes. We leave our little box to a smaller box. We get in a teeny box, and we push the button, and we go out the garage door. We don't look around.
Right.
We don't see things. So I learned this, and there's something you can type it into the internet. It's called the Tibetan eye chart, and it's actually tracing a snowflake. So then you begin to catch these little things, and then you go crazy because you get all worried.
You get dizzy and fall down?
Well, you see them, and you go like, get away from the TV, for God's sakes. I want to watch the show. I mean, life goes on. And that's one of the things about being a medium is you really do have to not get caught up in being a medium. It's part of existence, but it's just one part. So when you have, back all the way to your medium question, to give that lady the benefit of the doubt, as a medium, you attract more of this electronic energy. It would be interesting to measure the actual electronic frequencies of people who claim to be mediums, because I bet you could actually see that there is a different vibration for them. And some of them come from head injuries. As a matter of fact, I'm going to segue a little bit. Janet Batchelor Coons sent an email, and she said, "This is important. My son Mike keeps having deja vu moments. It's really scaring him, and he thinks he will have a seizure when that happens. Can you tell me what's happening?" It sounds to me as if he's got a brain tumor. This is, like going off on a limb, but I'm saying the kid needs a CAT scan because
Right.
at his, I don't know what his age is exactly, but if he's between, say, 14 and 21, there are certain things that can happen hormonally that can trigger small growths. I'm not talking cancer or anything deadly, but I am talking something that's causing triggering to happen. And these deja vu moments are a type of a seizure thing. One of the things you can ask him is, does he smell anything? Because when we're actually having a brain or anomaly, not just a mediumistic experience, you'll often get scents. Okay, and so most common is burning toast or cyanide, which is kind of like burning almonds. They'll smell that. And there'll be a tell before it happens. So, again, there'll be maybe 2 or 3 seconds before he has one of these deja vu moments when he's going to get a tell that it's going to happen. And what it is actually is it's just electronic. It's just his brain firing off in a different way, and then his consciousness picks it up in conjunction with his subconscious and gives him that feeling of a deja vu moment. It doesn't mean that everybody who has deja vu moments needs to go to their neurologist, but every once in a while, when somebody's getting cascading experiences like that, you should have it checked out. So that said, once we're smart and we have the kid checked out, then he can be opening up to some kind of mediumistic experiences. That is possible, but first you have to move in the realm of good sense.
Right.
And you have to make sure that everything's physically good. And then once that's physically good, there are techniques like focus techniques and stuff that stop you from going crazy. When you are a person like the medium that John talked about who does get some of these things happening, it's very easy to go back into your own darkness inside of yourself, depending on your religious upbringing or what you believe, and people pay attention to you, and it gets really exciting, and you can misinterpret what's happening. Also, you can draw to you spirits that aren't of the highest order. I mean, like maybe Elvis is having a problem and likes to scare people. That's possible,
Right.
Spirits have the same kind of personalities as we do.
Hey, what can I tell you? It's been 30 years since I've had a fried banana sandwich.
Whoa, did you hear that? Did you
think that
analyze
was
that, Robert?
What was that? What was that?
Is Elvis dead? That's the question.
So we're going to come back in just a moment, and we're going to talk about a couple of the other devices. If you have any questions about it, if you have any requests for readings, please give us a call, and we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so we've been talking about the ghost boxes, but Robert has a whole bunch of other stuff that he has here that he can measure the energy in a room and get some responses. There's some complicated laser thingies. So take it away, Robert. Tell us, if you're a good Ghostbuster, what do you absolutely need?
I should play the Ghostbusters theme.
Yeah, that would be
There
so
you
good.
go.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, you need a good EVP recorder or digital recorder, one thing. You need a good ghost box, which is the PSP7. A lot of people hack FM radios, and they use those as ghost boxes. You can buy a Radio Shack radio and modify it. I wouldn't recommend doing that. It used to be worth doing that, but now this ghost box is like $80. So, and this is really advanced because it scans really fast, and the hacked radios don't do that. So, but another thing I wanted to talk quickly about is I have a device I developed called the Paratalk. And I have it in front of me right now. In fact, we were getting some noise in the studio, and we thought it might have been that. But I checked that I didn't even plug it in. But you never know. We get noise. I don't know. I have a theory that if entities communicate on these FM bands by moving their charge and learning how to communicate, then why are we trying to talk to them with words and verbal sounds and acoustics? So I developed a way. I use a microphone, and I amplify it, and I send out a signal of my voice over the FM band, scanning really fast. So I don't know what channel they're on, but I'm going to go on all the channels I can. And that's what I use when I ask the question at the Angel Center. I use this device. You don't see it in the video, but the way I look at it is, they're hearing gibberish maybe when we talk. Maybe they'd rather hear us talk with a balloon generating static. I don't know. But when I talk into this device, it's generating a balloon static in electromagnetic field. So it's like my own little FM transmitter, but the only difference is I'm not on one channel. Like you're tuned in right now to this channel on a certain website. It's like being on 150 to 200 internet channels at once. So if anything is out there listening and they've learned how to listen to moving charge, then I can do it with this Paratalk device. So that's one thing I have in front of me. Not powered right now because I don't want to generate any noise in the studio. So,
well, I got a question now, because basically what you're talking about is the same device as a ghost box. Okay, so they're one of the same, basically, right?
Well, a ghost box is what I have in my hand here right now, and that's what's called the Frank box initially.
Yeah,
the ghost box is the thing that listens. What I'm talking about.
You're talking to them.
I'm talking to them.
Okay.
This. In fact, there's a button over here. It says talk or listen. It says normal or scan. So when I scan, I talk into the microphone just like we're talking right now. And instead of this going into your computer, it's going in the air. And it's going into multiple frequencies. Because I don't know where they're at, if they're even out there. So this is just another way to communicate to them. If it even works, I don't know. But I do know I've gotten responses with this.
Well, don't you think that if, when we talk to the spirits, like when a medium talks to a spirit, don't you think they're communicating in like regular non-frequency type, maybe frequency, I don't know, but somehow they're communicating to the outside world without a device like that?
I don't think so.
No?
I really feel that when Amy is channeling, she's not using acoustics or her voice box beyond what we hear. I think that there's waves of energy. I think that she's using something different that she's developed, and that's what's unique. Because if that was the case, we could all easily talk to entities that exist.
Yeah.
I think it's something unique, and I think that we don't know what it is. So my outlook on all of this is I don't know anything what's really happening, but I'm going to try and capture the information and then analyze it and present it. Because we really don't know. If somebody's watching a TV in their static and they see their dead relative in there, how do I know that that's not something that came through? I don't. But I want to try and validate some of these things with this newer technology. And maybe it's totally wrong. Maybe they don't communicate using this method. Maybe they do. But it's a start.
Well, one of the things, because I'm a geek, so I did a lot of studying. And, we're basically Cartesian and we're Roman Catholic Church oriented. Most of us are from Europe, and we have this idea that the universe revolves around man, and that man is created like God, so therefore everything in the universe has to look like us, be like us, sound like us, act like us.
Right.
It's just not true. It was a construct in order to make us more comfortable in our skin. And when you begin thinking outside the box, no pun intended, outside the box like Robert's thinking, then the true doors of communication to multidimensional beings, be they spirits or be they aliens, or be they dust mites, whatever, we're really opening up the doorway, and I think it's really necessary for us to do this at this time, because I'm telling you, and you heard it here from Beyond the Medium, we are not alone in the world, and in the year 2012, we're going to know it. They're going to open up that doorway for us to communicate. One of the reasons they haven't is because it's very difficult to understand what these beings from other dimensions, other planets, look like, act like, what are their thoughts. Do they eat? Do they care like us? Do they eat energy? We only look at it from our point of view.
Carbon based.
Yeah.
Right.
What are they? Or are they silica based? There's some evidence that right now on this earth there's silica based beings that actually grow. There's little mounds of things that grow on the sand into shapes, and they have no idea how that happens. That's a silica based event. But we're worried about our own little lives. And
Right.
we have a very small amount of time we start thinking about the wonders of the universe. And we have to change that. We have to focus out so that we're able to make friends with these beings.
Right.
So that we're able to actually have these communications. But he has one last thing that I would like him to talk about that I was really fascinated with, and it was a diffuse laser.
Oh, yeah. I have a a lot of people think that entities can move objects. I think Amy was stating something 4 to 6 ounces they can move. So I thought of a way to use a prism with a laser shining through it on a very sensitive spring. And if an entity is directed to try and move that green prism, the image is projected 20 feet away to a screen, and it's very, very sensitive. It's not sensitive to vibrations, it's sensitive to touch. So I developed that so that if an entity can try and touch the prism, we would get a response on the wall or on a screen. So it's just a simple laser through a prism, but very sensitive.
Oh, I just had such a Disney World of paranormal. We have to talk to the people who run Disney World, and see if you can come out there and see all these wonderful things.
I'll talk about one more device because I'm looking at my cheat sheet here. I just thought of an idea, and I don't know if this is really out there in left field, but I'm calling it a para-TV, and it's going to work like a ghost box. And it's going to scan the frequencies, but it's not going to use audio. It's going to use television channels that the FCC recently deallocated. And I'm going to be trying channels 52 to 69, which in technical terms is 631 megahertz through 806 megahertz. And I tried it today, and the only problem is I have to use an old TV set with tubes because all the new ones are all digital. And it generates EMF. So right now I'm trying to reduce the EMF using aluminized tape and grounding techniques. But I hope to try this in the next week at Amy's office.
I'm so excited.
You know what? It's already been done. Poltergeist. Watch the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
They're here.
But they didn't change channels though. See,
that's true. You're going to be changing
I'm
channels.
going to be scanning.
What if you see something come right through that screen? You're going to run like...
Yeah.
You better wear some Depends.
I got a pair of those ready because I probably will. And, in parallel to that, I'm going to have the ghost box going. So I'm just trying to get any kind of response. I don't think you'll ever get an image.
Yeah.
Because...
You could.
We're debating about whether a ghost can make audio.
Yeah.
And try and ask a ghost to make an image. And it's quite complex to do. So,
Wow.
But I'm really looking, trying it to see if I get any kind of response, whether it's just a flick on the screen, something in conjunction with the ghost box.
Okay, so if you were going to wrap up this experimentation, and you were going to tell us what would be your perfect event. So Robert is coming to my store, and I'm going to channel 11 o'clock Sunday night. Don't come, because we want to have as much quiet as we can possibly have.
I won't be there.
Aw. Anyway, it's just going to be Robert and his assistant and myself and maybe 1 or 2 other people. And I'm going to incorporate spirits, call the spirits around me, and see if we can't get them to cooperate with giving some signs. It's unusual here in the United States to do this, but it is not so unusual in Brazil. In Brazil, this idea of experimenting with the medium and getting actual evidence is much more prevalent.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And they also use, and I'll talk to you about it a little bit later, but one of the things they often use is mirrors. Reflective surfaces, and it was odd because in the location upstairs where Robert got his second EVP, there was a large mirror.
Right.
A reflective surface. Apparently, spirits can use that reflective surface to amplify their energy. And so one of the things I'd like to do is bring in a number of mirrors and see if the mirrors can get us a little bit stronger response. And so you have to tune back in next Wednesday because we'll have some information for you. Maybe not everything because it takes Robert a long time to analyze, but we'll at least be able to tell you yes, no, maybe so.
Right.
And everything's going to be filmed, right? And
Yes, videotaped, correct.
Yes. And I'm losing weight.
Okay.
Nothing like looking at yourself 3D,
Yeah, and I'm gaining weight to compensate.
Okay, good. You can take my weight.
Because
and
I have
I'm
a theory
losing.
that the Earth's rotation has to stay the same. So
Ah.
when somebody gains, somebody has to lose.
I think that's true. Here, Dave, here's all my weight.
Okay, and I'm not going to comment. Anyway.
Well, thank you so much for being with us,
No problem.
Robert.
It was
And would you
great.
please stick around for our meditation? And I want to tell a story about this meditation. Oh, and if any of you would like to experience live mediumship once a month, and it's the first Friday of the month, at the Angel Center, Intuition Unlimited. I do mediumship. We talk to the spirits. I actually pull them into my body, and you'll get to hear their stories and hear their cadence and how they talk. One of the things we were hoping in Robert's video that we could actually get my face changing, but what was even more amazing to me was the fact that the diction and the way they spoke and their hesitancy as they came through. It was just, I usually hate to watch myself, but this particular video, and if you want to catch it, you can go to my Facebook page, Amy Biank on Facebook, AMYBIANK on Facebook, and just click and you'll be taken to Robert's YouTube site and you'll see the video. It's quite entertaining. And Robert, where do people get 3D glasses if they don't happen to have them?
Actually, the glasses, are available for free at a website called rainbowsymphony.com. Do a search and you can get a pair for free. You just send them an envelope with a stamp and they'll send you one.
Oh, that's really cool, because when Robert first told me he was filming in 3D, I thought, oh my God, I don't have them.
Now, Robert, what's the point of filming in 3D, by the way?
You know, that's a good question. I was on another radio show, and that was the first question he asked me. And he had looked at one of my other YouTube channels I had 3D stuff on. And there's a lot of information in 3D that you don't get in 2D. You know, right now we're in this world, we're seeing 3D. You know, when the producer puts his fingers up, you see the fingers in front of you. But when you're recording, especially infrared, night vision, you get 2 dimensions only. So by putting 2 cameras, if I get something unique, if I get an orb, I can see if there's dimension to it. So if something, dramatic happens to somebody's face or something, an entity goes in front of them, there's positional information. And let me give you an example of how important that is. I was just going through the video that I did for Amy, and somebody showed up late accidentally, and they came in, and they poked their head into the room where Amy was channeling. And my first reaction was, oh my God, that is definitely a ghost. My son ran to the bathroom. and I'm thinking, oh, that's amazing. It was like the first 2 hours of looking at this. But then I saw a shadow, and then I saw, because of the 3D, that head was a physical head that was right behind the door. So I know who that person was. So I realized it wasn't a ghost at that point. So 3D is great for that, because if you look at the 2D, I'd be on TV right now somewhere.
I see. Because you would have actually believed.
You would believe it. You'd say, Amy, my God, Amy, you just channeled this person from the 1700s, and they poked in, and they got nervous.
Oh, Robert, why did you have to ruin it?
Isn't it more expensive to film in 3D?
Yes. And not only is it double the cost, but it's 4 times the editing effort.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Oh, my God. My wife thinks I'm nuts because the time I spend editing.
Well, it's going to come. Paranormal 4 in 3D.
Ooh, that'd be so
Paranormal
good.
Activity 4 in 3D.
Yeah, that'd be good.
It's coming.
They should contact me.
Well, none of those movies really were good.
No.
Paranormal Activities, no.
Dave just made me order it on my Netflix queue.
Hey,
Darn.
I'm sorry. Well, let's put it this way. They see dead people.
Yeah, well, what else is new?
It looked to me like they were being thrown about the room by dead people.
Yeah, that too, yeah.
Looked kind of cool. Looked rather neat.
I like Predator. That's a lot more fun.
Oh, okay.
I like Predator, too.
Yeah.
But anyway, I got to tell you, though, we saw I saw the film of the Sweat Lodge. And you were basically showing what an amazing device your night vision camera is. It's not that blurry, green, cruddy-looking thing. It was crystal clear. What an amazing device you got there.
Yeah, it's not a very expensive camera. It's just I modify an inexpensive camera the right way. But yeah, it is pretty clear. It's in HD. It's in 720p. It's called, and it's just great to be able to see 3 dimensions, especially in night vision.
Robert, can anybody ever hire you for this type of work to do for them?
Sure. I mean, I do investigations, anything like that, for free because I'm so interested in it. But does somebody want to hire me for something other than
surveillance or something? They could.
Well, I don't know about surveillance. Unless I'll tell you what, if somebody
Catch
has
the wife doing it with a ghost.
Whoa.
There you go.
That's that ghost sex thing you did
That's
last
right.
week.
Now that'd be good in 3D.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That would be Uber. Anyway. All righty. Well, Robert Veach, fascinating stuff. Why don't you give the folks out there one more time how they can contact you and see your stuff online?
You can go to the YouTube channel, VParanormal1, or you can go to VParanormal1.com.
And you have a website, too?
Yes, VParanormal1.com has all the links to the videos.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay. I didn't quite get it there. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
All righty. Thank you very much, Robert. We appreciate it. Robert Veach, fascinating guest here on this week's edition of Beyond the Medium.